my goodness.
All right, recording's on.
Start over.
Let's start over. All right, first, let me set it up. We are going to be doing coaching on topic today for the planning phase of high fidelity wraparound. What I hope to do is to review the rubrics with you, go over the skills for each of the roles, and then possibly do some behavior rehearsals for each of the roles. Okay?
Okay.
You want to start?
Hi, I'm Angela. Family support partner.
I'm Karen Redden, facilitator. She is Robinson, youth support partner.
And I'm Rodney Harding, facilitator for high fidelity wraparound process.
Thank you, Rob. All right, so before we get started, let's just talk a little bit about how the planning stage or the planning phase or planning period with families fits in our framework. So again, looking at our copy of the framework here on the board, where do we see it fitting and how is it related to our youth and families?
How is it related to it?
Yeah, like how do we see it working with our family?
Well, it's strength-based,
It's strength-based.
and we use natural supports.
Natural supports, and how are the natural supports and it being strength-based, how is it relevant to planning? In what way?
Well, because those are important components when we plan. That's what helps the family accomplish their goal.
That's good. Right, so we need to make sure that we're identifying strengths from the youth and family when we're doing our planning, when we're brainstorming, and we're completing our action steps and our action plan with them. Natural supports absolutely are involved in planning because without our natural supports, we don't really have a team of people. What else?
The natural supports help the family, provides a little more comfort for the family as they meet.
And it also kind of teaches like self-efficacy. Planning will help them to plan for themselves and
Right.
Right.
it teaches like self-efficacy because if you're planning, you can also like carry out those plans and do it yourself. You know?
Right.
And especially when we set up goals and they take baby steps, they like it like that. And it seems that they can do it. It makes them feel they can do it.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
mean, that's what I think.
Good. Anything else? No. Well, I think planning, because high fidelity wraparound is a team planning
And it's
process.
individualized.
It's individualized.
Right. For each different family, there's a different plan. So, individualized.
Absolutely. I think for planning, it's one of the components to the process that fits probably
I found
everywhere.
another one. Team-based.
Team-based, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And collaboration, everybody bringing their ideas together and making one plan.
What about community?
Community-based, I believe it's community-based too, because we can find different things and resources in the community and bring it to the
A
table.
lot of mental health providers are in the community,
Yes.
so they definitely play a vital role in planning.
Good.
As soon as you can.
All right, so now we see how planning fits into the framework. We see how important it is to keep all of this in mind.
No, I'm just talking about like team-based.
One of the things we have to remember when we're planning with the families, we keep all of these things, in the back of our head. We're thinking about our principles. We're thinking about family voice and choice. That's absolutely a part of planning, right. With the support partners, making sure that your youth and family members are empowered and feel like they do have a voice and choice in the planning process. Being team-based, we have a complete team of natural and professional supports, which comes to the next one, natural supports. It's collaborative, like you said, Angie, community-based, culturally competent. We didn't talk about that one a little bit, but when we're planning, it's important, just like Karen said with the strengths, identifying the strengths of the youth family, it's also important to identify the culture of the youth and family when we're doing our planning. Individualized, strength-based, persistent. Now, we didn't talk about this one, but this one is important. How many times have we planned something that did not come out the way that we thought it was going to come out?
All the time. Yeah.
All the time.
A lot of times. Not all the time, but, you know, sometimes you get surprises.
Right, right. And what we have to keep in mind with our principles is persistence is the key. You know, it's not going to happen on the first try necessarily. It may not even happen on the second or third try. I think Jazz is learning something about persistence with dealing with Taylor.
T.
It's a good T. Okay, T. Sorry. You know, with dealing with the youth that she's dealing with now, and sometimes you need a little bit more persistence than you do in other times. Sometimes it becomes a lot easier than it does in other times. But that persistence, I think, is what shows families that we care. I think it also models behavior that we want to see in them, persistence. You know, we go with them to these court hearings, we go with them to schools, and they don't always get what they want when they go up there that first time. And if they're not persistent, they may give up, you know, and then things don't get done. So persistence, I think, is a very important principle that we need to keep in mind. And then outcome-based. You know, Rodney, you and I had a conversation about the planning and how that really is the place where you see that outcome-based principle the most. Because you're looking to see, are our action steps meeting the goals that we set in our plan? And the goals are really identifying and helping us to pursue the vision and the needs that the families have identified. So outcome-based, absolutely about that. All right, great. Any questions about that? Any other comments that you want to make? No? Good. All right. Let's talk about the rubrics. I'm going to try to do this simultaneously. And I'm going to do that because when you're in a planning meeting, you have all your different roles. You have your family support role, your youth support role, and your facilitator role acting at the same time. And the idea is that if you are all demonstrating your skills at the same time, you're going to produce positive outcomes, you know, for them. So you should have a planning meeting where Jazz is working with the youth and using her skills to help with the voice and choice, you know, reminding people of the youth's strengths and culture. Angela's doing the same thing, and then Rodney and Karen, you would be facilitating, you know, all of this. So it should work in concert, I'll say, with one another. So let's take the first role with the facilitator first. Okay, so this is the rubric for the first team meeting. The first one is facilitator has prepared needed documents, that's the discovery, and an agenda prior to the meeting, and sent these to the team prior to the meeting. Facilitator had contact with team members and support partners, had contact with youth and family prior to meeting to review the agenda and to determine if any needs have become priority needs for planning. Okay, so what does that tell you off that? What's needed for the planning?
I mean, the discovery.
The discovery, right?
Everybody has to have the discovery on hand. And, I mean, it also gives you an opportunity to update that discovery among the team, the professionals, the natural support. And also by sending your agenda out before the meeting, it prepares the professionals and the natural supports and the family for any topics they want to bring up.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Additionally, you see the family support and the youth support partner role included in that as well, because it's also saying that you should be preparing the families ahead of time. So, you know, Jazz, you've gone out with the youth, met with the youth, you've already been meeting with them to gather the information for the discovery. Now you're preparing for this team meeting. You should know or have an idea of what the youth's needs are before that team meeting. Same thing with you, Angela. You should have been working with mom or dad or the family family members and getting those
The
needs.
strengths,
Right.
the needs, and, know the culture of the family.
Exactly. So that brings me to number one of your skills.
Right.
FSP and YSP have prepared the family in advance and clearly understand their point of view on needs, strengths, culture, and goals, right? So that information that you guys have prepared with the family then goes back to the facilitators. So facilitators, you're not going in there blind, so to speak, not knowing, what they're going to talk about, right, okay? All right, let's go to number two. Facilitator and support partners have made every possible effort to ensure all needed professional and natural supports participate in the team. Specific preparation has been done as described in number one above by all members of the HFW workforce members who are coordinating activities with each other. So basically this is saying, facilitators, you set the agenda, you know who's coming to the meeting. So you've made your contacts with the potential team members based on information that the youth support partner and family support partner have gotten in their gathering information. So they've identified natural support, right? They've identified the professional support. So before all of this, you talk to whoever the professional is, the mental health people, the school people that are coming in. You even talk with the natural supports to the point where you're telling them what time and what day the meeting is going to be. I think just in terms of our culture, I think what we do well is coordinating with one another information about team members or potential team members. While our meetings may be rescheduled and things like that, at least we've identified who the people are going to be for that team, for that first team meeting, and the support partners communicate very well with you in terms of getting you that information. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. The facilitator number three. I'm on number three. The facilitator. Go ahead.
Oh, you already talked about?
Right,
my
because you
part,
guys, right.
Just gonna actively advocate for the family?
No, that's not. I'm not there yet, honey. We're
You're
still.
on two, right?
Yes, but I'm not there with you yet.
She's doing facilitator.
Oh, you doing facilitate?
I'm
I
doing.
doing one.
I am, but that
See,
number
look.
two is not.
See how the facilitator says facilitate and support partners.
I'm not there again,
Team
honey.
based, so.
Right, I'm not gonna forget you. The facilitator and support partners assist the team to develop ground rules that maximize safety, a positive strength-based approach, and family and youth voice and choice, including how decisions will be made for how the team would like to conduct meetings. So this speaks directly to our ground rules. What's the first thing we say was one of our ground rules? No shaming.
No blaming.
Right. All right. So for you guys, you're advocating for the youth and the family members in your team. You're reminding your supports that your support person that they have a choice in this process, and that their voice is important, and that which is again why it's important to gather this information ahead of time. So Jazz, for example, our kids are the ones that I think have the biggest challenge with this, because so often their voice is not heard in these types of meetings. So
Families either.
the families
Yeah.
also, but especially the kids, I think only because at least family members.
They're adults, the kids
They're
feel
adults.
like. Yeah, but sometimes.
No, I agree.
And Rodney,
Sometimes-
you know this to be true.
School-wise,
In our last
school-based
meeting, we're
meetings.
talking to the school.
Right.
Remember when everybody was around
providers
and
and
the parent she felt like she didn't have a voice.
Mhm.
And I kept stopping. How do you feel about that,
Mhm.
Miss J?
Right.
Are you okay with what they're saying?
Right.
And Ronnie did a lot of advocating too for the family, but I kept letting her understand that she can say what she needs to say.
Mhm.
And if it's not going the way she wants it to go, or she feel like they're pushing her somewhere that she's not going to be able
Right.
to go, then now is her time to speak.
Right.
So she was feeling good about that, and she said she felt that it went in her favor, so that's good. Sometimes the adults need help too.
Absolutely.
Especially when it
I
comes to
agree.
documents,
Right.
Yes.
like, don't give them documents, and like Angie.
And just like she didn't know what an IEP was.
Right, and so what,
And I'm
as
telling her, wait a
Angela's-
minute, did you read the IEP?
Mhm.
She said, I don't even know what an IEP is. I'm like, see, we need an IEP meeting.
Right.
So
And
that
then
we
that's
can
when I started
discuss it.
talking to the
Yes.
providers
So-
about IEP and talking about, there's a lot of things that they wanted her to confirm
Mhm.
that she had no knowledge
idea.
of what any of the acronyms meant or
Right.
the assumptions, there was a steady key trying to put
Yes,
into the
put
computer
it- what they wanted.
and what
And
they
they say
wanted
science-
into.
So now you see the
Yeah.
strengths of having this role
Absolutely.
in those types of meetings, because if Angie or if High Five was not involved in that.
And she would
And
have,
she
she
would've
would have
been
just said okay to
trampled over.
whatever.
Okay, right, and I've
then-
seen
right.
that
Mhm.
many
And they
many
can't
times.
take the components of that IEP home to practice it at
Mhm.
home
Mhm.
because you don't understand what you read.
Mhm.
Yes.
So it doesn't work out any which way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
at conferences, you're like, oh, okay.
And they don't understand
Here, sign
they
it.
don't understand, a lot of times they don't understand the legal validity of those documents. And so,
Right.
those documents, just input, especially
Right.
if it's following an incident.
And that's why
And
probably
they-
the parents say so much, well, they're with you 8 hours out of the day, why don't you do what you're supposed to? Because
Mhm.
they made these master plans and the parents are never included.
Right.
Right, and that's what happened in that,
They put a lot of
because
responsibility on
that
school.
child at home is fine from what is discussed or conveyed. But at school, with all these master
They
plans,
have the challenge.
It's when the
Nobody asks
child
what
has-
works at school, at home,
at home, right,
to implement in school, they just have this cookie cutter.
Right.
stuff.
Jazz, what has been your experience with the kids?
I mean, they don't really like speaking up in front of adults because they feel like the adults want to they're used to adults telling them what to do. So I help them appreciate it. If I'm here, even when I'm not here, you can say how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And usually with now lately the youth that I have now, they're not really too afraid to speak up, but in the past when they were, I used to just make them feel as comfortable as possible so they can say it, and it has worked, especially with VH. Like, he has no problem speaking up in meetings now.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and I remember it was one time he said, I'm not saying nothing in these meetings, but now he's very outspoken.
Okay.
And even with following the ground rules that we come up with, I think they're helpful too. And everyone gets a chance to say what they have to say, and he gets heard.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think it's important when the support partners start suggesting ground rules. Like, I noticed that because then the family or the youth says, okay, well, if they're gonna say something, then I'll say it. Like, they take the lead in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very important because, the facilitator can't make the ground rules because it's not really on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for them to say it because now the ground rules are probably what they use at home,
Mm-hmm.
so they become more comfortable with it.
They get scared because they feel like somebody's gonna bash them. Like
They
somebody's
feel like
gonna,
we're telling them what to do,
Yeah.
but you guys take
Yeah.
control.
And I've noticed the parents,
Yeah,
they feel, I wouldn't say stupid, but they feel incompetent. Incompetent. They feel like if they say something, they're gonna
Right.
sound immature.
Right,
Like,
right.
so they don't say anything and they just sign whatever. They
Okay.
sign their life away and
Right.
they don't know.
And our role,
And then when they-
gives them that sense of belonging and gives them that comfort to
Yeah.
express themselves
Mhm.
without being judged or being incompetent for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I also
Yeah,
think
you're
facilitators, like when we're at school meetings, I think we are able to break down, like even though Angie and Jazz are there, I think we're maybe a little more familiar with the lingo.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to go up there and break everything down.
Right.
Like the IEP may say blah, 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 something technical. We go up there and say, oh, okay, so he can walk out in the hallway when he's upset.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody agree? Oh, yeah.
because
We were able to break that
we
down
can't
for the
read
family.
that
Yeah.
to the most
Right.
part.
Right. Okay, that's good. That's great. Excellent.
Because schools and providers will take advantage of you to save their behind. And that's
Or
what,
just get them out, in and
we're
out.
just getting,
Right. All right, let's do number 4. Angie, I'm not on number 4 with you. We basically talked about understanding, we talked about encouraging the youth to be active participants, using youth voice and choice in the process, and keeping the strengths in mind. But we'll go over that you sort of talked about
All
that
of
in your
that, yeah.
conversation. All right, so number 4 on the facilitator page. The facilitator highlights key points, priority needs, and strengths and culture related to these needs. of the discovery and ask the team for any additions. So, like you said, Karen, we were talking about updating the discovery at that process. So you guys have already gone out to have a discovery done, you know, maybe they forgot some things, maybe, by highlighting the things that have already been discussed, you bring their memory of something else, so they want to add some more things. So this is an opportunity to update the discovery and really highlight what this first plan is going to look like. You know, what is it that the family wants to work on at the very beginning? Why this is going to become important, because with you and Jazz, and when you are helping your supports with their voice and choice during this process, a family member's needs priority may not be the same as the youth's needs or priorities. So it's important that you and Jazz also have conversations around what the priorities are and help your person understand that they have just as much voice and choice as the other. You know, there is no
Big eyes and little D's.
right. Exactly. So, in those situations when there is conflicting or diverging needs, how do you sort of problem solve that? So the kid says, I want more freedom. You know, I would like my mother to not barge in my room during certain times when I'm alone and want to do things. Mom says, I want to know what's going on in his room all the time.
She'll talk to you, and then she'll talk to me.
That's how we always do.
Right, and then I'll talk to the parent, and then I'll talk to Jazz. And we both come up with, well, the parent and the youth will come up with a medium. And we'll talk about it, and then at the meeting, they'll be.
So what if mom is just hardcore, this is my house?
Most of the time,
It's my
sometimes they are. But in explaining to them that it's not working your way. So would you like to try something different? You know what I mean? And most of the time sometimes they'll say no, and you just be persistent.
Right.
I think
You be
also,
persistent, and you tell them, listen, well, you keep calling me, you keep talking about this thing that's not working, you keep running into a brick wall with your child. How about your child feels this way and that way and the other way, and what if you did something different? What could you do different, is what I'll say. I won't suggest what they do, but what could you do different? I mean, can't you, if you would put yourself in your child's shoes, I mean, how would you want to do it? Would you just want your mother to barge in your room and not care? You could be doing anything.
But see, a lot of that,
Not necessarily something negative, but it's your personal space. Everybody needs personal space sometimes.
a lot of that comes down. See, a lot of that boils down. I mean, we have several cases where you know, parents may feel like that. Look, this is my house. I pay the bills, and you are a child, and I'm an adult. Period. You know, so you have to look at the culture. You have to look at the culture a lot, because and it may not be a matter of trying to encourage a lot of compromise on the different sides. It may matter of understanding the culture and creating some realities and strategies within the realities. You know, for both the parent and the youth, because the average parent, you know, and this is where it could be different. The average parent may be like, I mean, I grew up in a household where, I understood that everything I had, I didn't buy until I got a job. When I got a job, then I had to say something. I can use my beeper at that time, whenever I wanted to, because it was my beeper.
So I want to talk.
Culture is
so I
important to look at
what
culture.
Rodney said, because this speaks directly to the support partner's role in helping the youth and family understand the mandates and point of view of other team members. Right? This speaks directly to this. So it's the mandates, such as probationary mandates and things like that, but it's also understanding the other team members' point of view. One thing that I want to make sure that you understand. your role, Angie, is not to come up with a compromise. It's not to say, you know, how would you feel if this happened? Because at that moment that you say that, you're basically making a judgment statement and saying that you agree with the youth.
Okay.
And that's not how you sort of help them to understand it.
Okay.
Rodney used an example of using an example from his own life. You know, saying things like, you know, I've had a situation like this before where the youth and the family didn't agree on things, and this is how they worked it out. You know, is this something that you would like to try? Because it's not necessarily. I know it's very easy to sort of, you know, I understand, we're both parents, you know, I get it, you're not, you know, you don't want your daughter doing such and such and such, and it's easy to fall into that because you are a mother, but you have to sort of take that part of it away and really be objective and neutral in the situation. You're not taking one side over the other. You're trying to bring them together so that they can come up with whatever is going to work best.
But you know what, I think I've seen them both do that. Maybe in the instance where they are, we had a meeting with AH. And the bottom line was the youth was not doing her chores. Oh, you have to do it, you have to do it. But in the meeting, Angie was like, well, why is it that it bothers you? You know, she kept digging deeper. And she found out, you know, mom's exhausted, mom's overwhelmed, she has no time to relax. That was the reason why she was always harping on the youth helping her, because her personal need was, I don't have any help and I don't have time to relax. So we had a natural support who said, well, you know what, I'll babysit them. The youth was like, okay, I'll do my laundry, you know, Saturday, Sunday before you do yours. And then mom had a half an hour, we all agreed, and she would relax. And then, like, I've seen them dig deeper.
So basically what you just said is that, and this is with, I think, conflict in general, it isn't always the immediate sort of issue. A lot of times it's layers. There's something going on underneath. Like you said, she didn't really, what the problem was, she just needed time for herself.
And then that's when Angie could relate. You know, Angie always has people in her house, and she had 4 kids. She
And always using an example helps. So I agree with you, but I agree with the finding out the culture of the family, and at the same time,
Just use
give them my experience.
right.
But
Or even a similar
also,
experience of another family.
just making that parent look at it a different way. Sometimes it helps. You can't do it for all of them, but with some parents, you can ask them to look at it a different way.
Right.
And it won't make them feel like I'm taking sides. But it depends on the parent and the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I agree with everybody here. That's why this is a team-based process. Because everybody has a vital role, and everybody brings something different to the team.
Right. Right. No, I just want to check and make sure that
He's actually recording this time.
yeah. I'm gonna